We did our first show, Vinegar Tom, at one of the theaters here at the Westbeth in 1992. After that show, we joined Art New York, and at the very first roundtable I ever went to, I met two other theater companies who wanted to form a consortium and rent a theater for the entire year. So we rented the Samuel Beckett Theater on Theater Row from 1992 to 1994. We did 6 shows. At that time, there's still a theater called the Samuel Beckett in here, but at that time the Beckett was its own building, a row house, in a row of row houses, which is why it was called Theater Row. It was the smallest of the theaters with 74 seats, but had very high ceilings, so I learned a lot about how difficult it is to hang lights and stuff. I also learned a lot about leaks, because in the dressing room there were some very prominent leaks, which I experienced a lot because at that time I was in a lot of the shows. I lived right around the corner from the Beckett Theater on West 43rd Street, on top of my husband's parents' business, which meant we didn't have a buzzer or a doorbell. So if you wanted to come get a key from me for the room, which I was happy to give you any time of the day or night, you had to call me from the corner so I could come down and give it to you, probably in my pajamas. And in order to do that, you had to find a payphone, which is pretty easy to do, but finding a payphone that worked? We were in residence at Soho Rep from 1995 to 1998, and the place was kind of a disaster at that time. The first night of our very first load-in, it was pouring, and at some point I noticed that I wasn't just hearing the rain from outside, that there was actually rain coming down the entire back wall of the theater, from the roof, past the balcony that was in there, past the floor of the stage, and down to the basement. So, like a waterfall, lots and lots of sheets of rain. So I went downstairs and I called Julian Weber, who was the artistic director at that time, and he didn't seem that excited to hear from me because apparently this happened all the time. And I realized that what I was standing on in the dressing room was a platform that served as the floor, so that the water could actually go down below the platform and run out the other side and head toward the electricity closet. You may remember when this was the entrance to here, and there was another entrance there, and there were three theaters and a gallery and the cafe. And indeed, the Performance Club, which no longer exists, is where we first produced it here in the mid-90s. That's where you go through now, and it's nice too. We produced a lot at the Ohio Theater, which was down this block before it closed in 2010. We produced there starting in 2000, but I don't think I could get any closer than this. It's too depressing. For a citywide festival celebrating the work of the writer Don Powell, we commissioned 8 plays and produced them in 2 evenings here at the 78th Street Theater Lab. Not in the main space on the 3rd floor, but on the 2nd floor, where they had a teeny tiny 38-seat theater. And we had more than 40 actors getting dressed in period costumes backstage, and basically had to create a lighting, plot, grid, electricity system for the whole show. That was pretty crazy. We put a basketball court in the Baruch Performing Arts Center for 3 seconds in the key. The Beauty Inside, downstairs at 45 Bleecker Street. We moved into 3LD for an 8-week residency right after it opened in 2006, and our production, Dead City, was the first show to actually open here. We were really worried about people finding it way down here below Ground Zero since they'd never been here before. But fortunately, our play was an adaptation of Ulysses, which took place all around New York City, so all of our marketing materials were a huge map based on the New York City subway map, all leading to 3LD. And people definitely found it. We splurged a little bit on God's Ear doing it here at East 13th Street. 2 shows at the Living Theater, both in 2008. We were the first renters here too, and Judith Molina, who actually lives upstairs from the theater, invited us to have our Stretch of Fantasia closing night party on her roof deck, which was wild.